Patrick Netherton Show rolling on, and we are very excited to welcome a guest from across the pond from Lyon, France, where the United States women's team just successfully took care of the World Cup. Dan Wetzel from Yahoo Sports, a friend and a hell of a writer who, by the way, not a bad gig, gets to go to France and cover the World Cup. Dan, first of all, I'm not good with time zones. Is it like Thursday over there? What time is it? I don't know. I can't handle time zones. Are you accustomed to where you're at now? You get over the jet lag and everything. You're good.
It's definitely cocktail hour, but I stay clean for you. So that's probably all I can tell you. That's 7 hours ahead of where you are.
Wow, that's crazy. It feels like it must feel like Wednesday. I don't know. It's pretty crazy. Dan,
I'm ready to come home.
Yeah, I understand that. By the way, when do you finally get to come back?
I will be back Tuesday. So.
Awesome. All right, so you know this is a pretty awesome experience to get to cover a dominant team like the women's national team. You get to follow along with them. You get to see and not only is it a dominant performance on just a national scale, but you have such great personalities that are involved, and you have all of the stuff that's happening off the field with, Rapinoe and Trump and the equal pay stuff. Tell me what it's been like to cover this team this World Cup season.
I feel like this is like a little bit like what it would have been to cover like the University of Miami football team in its heyday, or the Oklahoma Sooners, or like these guys just absolutely destroy the competition and then are not afraid to talk smack, celebrate, act in ways that go, well, they shouldn't act that way, take on authority, argue with whoever's arguing with them, just complete, unapologetic fearlessness. And I don't know that there's ever been a woman's team that had that at this level. We've seen it many, many times in men's teams, and they usually are kind of like polarizing at the time, and then later on, everyone kind of looks back and goes, oh, boy, they were fun. That was fun to have around. And I think there's a little bit of that, too. Like, this team is a bit polarizing, but at the end of the day, they just don't care, and they just bring it. I mean, like, when they got here and Allie Krieger goes, we had the best team and the second best team.
Yeah.
Then they went out and won 13-0. And it's like, here we are, it's pretty amazing team. It's the most dominant team other than like USA basketball teams I've covered. It's pretty much the most dominant team I've ever been around.
Yeah, and I think the Dream Team comparisons are interesting, Dan, because it's a dominant team, but it's not necessarily in the same way where, they had soccer first, basically. We kind of had basketball first, and so it's the inverse where we've just taken their sport and are now beating them at it, as opposed to we're taking our sport and beating them at it with our professionals. So it's interesting in that they've risen to this level in basically, the European sport.
Yeah, it's a totally different deal. I mean, the USA basketball Olympic team, men's or women's, you fully expect to dominate and win. This is a much closer competition. These guys are just better. I mean, it is flat out better. And the level of domination this game, they never trailed in the World Cup. Okay, they outscored their opponents 26-3. They led. They had the lead in 70.2% of all the minutes played that they were in the game. They held the lead. That's, by soccer standards, I'm not even sure how that's got sometime there'll be some advanced stat person 100 years from now looking back on that. That can't be true. That has to be a misprint. They just absolutely dominated. They overwhelmed them. And yeah, it's not one of those deals like, well, we got all the pros. We expect to win in men's basketball or even women's basketball. We do have an advantage in that we have more women playing, more girls playing. We obviously Title IX created this, generations now of female athletes that the rest of the world hasn't had, although they're starting to now. But regardless of what the U.S. did in this tournament, it was just complete domination, and they were not afraid to say, hey, look, we're really good. We need to, there was never any, well, we just hope we play well. It's like, no, we're going to win. We need to win. We don't win, we're a total failure. But they always played as a team. They did respect their opponent. They just had so much confidence in themselves.
Talking to Dan Wetzel from Yahoo Sports in France, covering the World Cup. Dan, I'm curious, especially the younger players. Obviously, the older players, maybe not as much. But do you think that what we're seeing from some of the younger players that are on this team, that are they're coming through and taking some starring roles, is this maybe a direct correlation of what Brandi Chastain and her group did back in the '90s with Mia Hamm? That's this generation coming to fruition from what they started?
I think it's pretty much all of them. I mean, the 1999 team that won the World Cup at the Rose Bowl, there was the 91 team, and that kind of that began getting communities to have girls soccer leagues, right? And then 99 came, and so that's 20 years ago. So, if you're 8 years old at that time, you're 28 now, that's what inspired you. There was already the setup of those leagues, and then you just looked at that dream team and said, that's who I want to play. I mean, Alex Morgan's just turned 30. She talked about how important it was to her to watch that 99 team, and she wanted to be Christine Lilly, who was a star in that club. And so I think pretty much all of them, but certainly the younger ones, they all were inspired by that. And then the beauty of it is each time there's just a better setup. And so maybe after 91, some of the players had to scramble and go, well, I want to play soccer, but there's no rec soccer in my league, or the coaching isn't very good, or there isn't, specialized training. By 99 there was, and then certainly as you see it now, there totally is. And so you see some of these young players that are incredibly skilled. Sam Mewis is 26. Rose Lavelle, who had a beautiful goal yesterday, is 24. Mallory Pugh, she scored early. She couldn't even really get on the field. She's going to score a gazillion goals for the U.S. women's national team through the years. She's probably the next kind of Alex Morgan type, 21 years old. So you have these young stars on here, even as the Carly Lloyd cycle out, and Rapinoe probably wouldn't be back in 4 years. She's 33. As they kind of cycle out, you can see all of this talent still coming. So this is a real juggernaut.
Talking to Dan Wetzel from Yahoo Sports. Dan, this is an interesting time in that everything seems to be politicized, and obviously Megan Rapinoe is kind of the lightning rod. She talked several months ago about not wanting to visit the White House, and used an expletive with Trump, and Trump fired back, and we're in a very kind of politically charged environment these days. Is that part of the reason why maybe there are so many eyes on what this team's doing? If there was no controversy, do you think there would maybe be less attention paid to this, or would this be still as huge a story as it has been the last several weeks?
I mean, I think it's a team that divides with some people, but I think, again, I almost go back to that original point where they are talking politics, but I think the way they play and the way they celebrate, the way they scored, they were causing people to go, hey, wait a minute, what's going on here? This isn't how we're used to women's teams competing or playing. Just unapologetically beating someone 13-0, or literally saying our second team will beat anybody in this. Those are some bold talk. Let me put it this way. When Donald Trump is saying, hey, you guys might be getting a little bit ahead of yourself in your bracket. Really?
Yeah.
Like Donald Trump saying, tone it down? All right. We've got something here.
Yeah.
So, obviously, with Trump, everything divides as people don't like Rapinoe and don't like this or that. The one thing I would say about Rapinoe and Morgan, who really were the two that talked the most, to their credit, I think you can give them credit even if you disagree with everything they say. They didn't come here to say, I'm going to just win. We're going to do it the old way. I hope I get a little bit more money from Nike. They came here and said, we're going to get in everyone's face. We're going to be totally true to ourselves. We're going to challenge. The Trump thing gets a lot of attention, but they really spent their time challenging FIFA and challenging these national federations around the world that don't invest in women's sports the way the Americans do. And they basically said, look, you can be as good as us if you start caring. And they were just, and I imagine that didn't get a whole lot of play back home, but it got play around the world. And so it's like, look, get with the program. We're going to embarrass you. We're going to call you out. We're not bad. Megan Rapinoe is completely fearless. She doesn't care. And so as much as Donald Trump isn't scared of Megan Rapinoe's not scared of Donald Trump. There's a lot of similarities there, though, even though they're complete opposites. So they're all just were going to speak their mind. They were going to act their way. They were going to play their way, and they were going to absolutely win. And look, that type of team, whether it's a men's team, a women's team, whether it is political or not political, is going to rub some people the wrong way, and it is going to cause some division no matter what. And they just didn't care. It's really one of the few, maybe the first true women's team that just flat out embraced that, just said, yeah, I don't care. The way those old Oklahoma teams, the old Miami teams, or the bad boy Pistons or whatever, just did it. Hey, we're going to kick ass. You want to shut us up? Shut us up.
Why?
Nobody shut them up.
Why are we at the point where they're having to sue to get more money? Walk me through the financials of this, Dan, because I don't think a lot of people understand. Yes, the Men's World Cup is a bigger moneymaker than the Women's World Cup, globally. I understand that. But at least in terms of merchandise, in terms of status, it would seem like the women's team deserves at least equal pay to the men's team, if not more pay than the men's team. If you look at in terms of results, what's the holdup here? Why is the pay disparity so great? What's the financial aspect of all of this?
Well, it's super complicated, and I think one of the problems with this debate is you get a reaction either way, but it might not be accurate. I think both sides of this has some merit, but you just take a World Cup. I mean, the U.S. wasn't even in the World Cup last year, and it's on television all the time, and lots of people are watching. They're watching because they want to watch Lionel Messi. And, there's a men's game last night in Chicago, the Gold Cup, and they sold out Soldier Field for that game. But it was USA-Mexico, and, 80% of the crowd were rooting for Mexico.
Right.
They don't have that kind of ability in the U.S. The men in the U.S. are being subsidized. They're just being subsidized by the other great teams around the world,
sure,
or the other rivalries that they can bring teams in. You can't bring the women's Mexican national team in and play a friendly or play in a tournament and fill out Soldier Field. And maybe you can right now because there's enough American fans.
Right.
But you don't have that advantage. It's like we don't even have to win. We just have to show up. So there's a lot of that goes into it. There is a lawsuit seeking equal play, but like most lawsuits, and if you really listen to Rapinoe, we're not really asking for equal pay. We get it. Let's put it this way: the entire money pool for the Women's World Cup, the prize money was $24 million this year. It's $400 million for the men.
Yeah,
for the entire thing. Now the U.S. isn't going to get to the end and win it, but they didn't get in it. But it's apples to oranges. But if you listen to what she's talking about, we just want more. We want to get closer. We think we deserve more. We want better funding. We want our coaches paid more. We want more into development. And then she's really yelling about it internationally and saying it's a total joke because you think there's a disparity in the U.S. You should see it in France or England or some of these places that really we're not even talking about developing countries. So it's a complicated thing about the equal pay. It's not necessarily about equal pay. It's really about equal respect, and then working in that kind of a deal.
Yeah, and look, if you just base it on results, they definitely deserve it. There's no doubt about it. Talking to Dan Wetzel from Yahoo Sports over in France. All right, Dan, let's move forward. There were a lot of predictions after the Brandi Chastain team and what result that would have, what effect that would have on women's soccer. We've seen a massive surge in girls playing soccer at a younger age throughout the United States, and we're seeing the results of that with this team. What do you think happens from this team winning the World Cup moving forward?
I think in America, the real place, there are two places to develop the game, and one is in major cities where there aren't as many teams, and in rural areas where it's the thing about soccer is you really need like a 15, 16 team, and you need top training. It's a very intricate sport, and it's hard to play. You can be a great football player on a bad team. You can't be you really can't be a great soccer player on a bad soccer team, and so there's a lot of our country just isn't served by soccer. Now, the suburbs or, certain cities, absolutely. Like any suburb in the country has got kids 4 years old to playing soccer. Soccer and basketball, to me, are the two sports that pretty much every American in those communities are. Basketball maybe anywhere in the country where you just literally everyone's played it at some point. Might have been gym class in the third grade, but you took a ball and you tried to shoot it at a hoop. So I think there can be some growth there. I think actually that this is a more global growth thing. And again, I mean, if you really listen to Rapinoe or you listen to what all these guys are talking about, then you see some of this where they're really just talking about how do we grow. Now, what the big change is that you hear, Real Madrid, the big soccer club here, starting a women's professional team, the English Premier Leagues, more teams. This will increase salaries and competition and development in those countries to where I don't think the U.S. ever really dominates quite like they did this time. Maybe they do, but the competition is coming because these other countries are taking this very, very seriously now.
So really, it is the dream team. After 92, everyone else started paying attention to basketball, and all the rest of the teams have risen the level of their play, and that's probably what's going to happen here.
Yeah, a third of the NBA is now foreign born.
Yeah.
So I would expect it really to be more of a global growth and higher quality of play and stuff like that. I don't know that there's, again, other than maybe more rural areas or certainly some of the inner cities, I don't know that there's a large portion of America I don't really think are sitting there going, boy, I got a kid that wants to play soccer. I don't know what to do. That used to be the case, and that just isn't anymore.
All right, final thing, non-soccer related. What's the best thing you've seen done while you were in France?
Non-soccer related.
Yeah.
Was the best thing I saw in France.
Saw or done or eaten?
Saw the Mona Lisa. I saw,
Mona Lisa.
I don't know.
Yeah.
You ever seen the Mona Lisa?
Smaller than you expect, right?
That's what everyone said. Well, everyone said it was smaller than I expected, and then when I saw it, I was like, "Oh, it's bigger."
Well, hey.
Yeah,
Good
I don't
for
know why that's famous. I'm still puzzled. I don't know.
I'm puzzled by art in general, Dan. So don't
but
feel
I
bad
went,
about it.
So
Hey,
culture.
You've seen it. That's what it amounts to. She smiled at you. That's all you have to worry about. That. Hey,
Yeah.
Dan,
Smiled
look. I'll PayPal you for the international roaming charges for this interview. So just let me know. And dude, we really appreciate your time, man. Thank you so much.
Always worth it to talk to you guys. Take care.
All right, Dan Wetzel, Yahoo Sports.